Microsoft always misses the bus. But they run fast, get into the bus, get to the driver's seat. I think it's happened again in AI. When we started, nobody believed we can do enterprise sales in US.
Startup is like a war, it takes a decade to win. We typically discourage people from joining us after giving the offer because we tell them, I think we underestimate the talent that we have. We overestimate the talent that we want to bring. Very few founders are like super friendly to their teams. Most of the time we are pushing the team to the brink. Our industry does not have respect for patience, right? You got to really move fast.
In last 6 months, we have seen several of our customers coming back. We have bought some AI solutions. We are facing adoption issue.
Can you drive adoption? Actually, at some point, Khadim should write a book that should become like a founder's playbook, not SaaS playbook, not GTM playbook, founder's playbook. I think raise the ambition. Let the world say whatever it wants to say.
Hi, this is Siddharth Aluwalia, your host today and managing partner at Neon Fund. Neon Fund has invested in the best of enterprise software companies in the last 6 years. I have today a very, very dear friend along with me, Vijay Rayapati, founder of Atomicwork. Neon is a proud investor in Atomicwork and so grateful to be in this journey along with Vijay. Khadim, I respect you a lot. You have created a category among the Indian founders. As we discussed, you are the only CEO who has stayed back and still managed to create a very large company in enterprise software. And you have raised the bar for all the founders in India. So today is going to be a fun conversation. But Vijay, I want to start with, you posted this meme, some time back that, a VC asking founder that you are just a rapper on LLM and the founder asking the VC, you are just a rapper on NLP. Just tell us the origin of that. And what is the response you received?
I mean, it went viral and it became very popular. So that was the first meme I created, using AI. So the origin was, one of our investors, Z47, had global LP meet in India. So I flew from US. We had an amazing evening and we were chatting. So the conversation started among a bunch of founders saying, hey, all of us are just doing wrappers. And then one of our friend, Pranay, joined the conversation. So I was cracking a joke on Pranay that, you're a rapper on LP. So that's how it started. I didn't expect it will go so much viral. So not many VCs knew me before this meme. But after this, I think most people know. Now I'm infamous among VCs.
So people love you or hate you for this?
No, I think people love. I think it's a human side. I think everybody has a job to do.
Yeah.
And just like founders have, VCs also have a job to do. But I think, before we go too much in it, I want to say I'm a big fan of Khadim. Actually, only one founder came and spoke to entire Atomicwork team when we started in the first year. That's Khadim. After that, we have not yet called a second
not
time.
Invited anyone
else. But we plan to call Khadim back. So I'm a big fan of what he has done and how thoughtful he is. So, great to be here, Khadim.
Yeah, just to break the ice for our audience, right? I want to start with one thing that you admire about Khadim and vice versa, Khadim you admire, and one thing you want to change about Khadim in a fun way.
I think Khadim taught Indian founders. Indian founders know how to code in IST. They didn't know how to close in PST. He taught all of us how to close in PST. I think he's a great founder in terms of his humility. I think he's very deep thinker, I just love how thoughtfully he designs. Sales for him is like an engineering problem. I think account management is an engineering problem. Even a customer success is an engineering problem, right? I think he has proven almost everybody. I think he broke every ceiling. Every investor used to say after 10K you can't sell, after 50K you can't sell, after 100K you can't sell. I think he's the long-standing.
Now Khadim has also sold $500,000.
He had $1 million deals.
Yeah.
He sold $1 million deals from India. I think it's remarkable. So I think there is so much to learn. Despite that, most of us still planning to move to US. So, but I think he has proven that just like you can code from anywhere, you can also close from anywhere. Amazing man,
And one thing that you would like to change about Khadim?
I would like to see Khadim more in the Bay. So Khadim is the only founder I meet in Bangalore. Every other person I mostly meet in the Bay.
What about you, Khadim?
Yeah, maybe I was the only founder to speak at Atomicwork because I was probably the only CEO founder in Bangalore. And maybe I think you guys didn't read the latest PR. We did, of course, we did several $1 million before this, but we did the first $1 million in federal space from India again.
Amazing.
US Army, we closed that deal.
Amazing.
Right? Yeah. So.
And I was asking, like, what you have known Vijay, right? For a long period of time. What are the things that you admire about Vijay? And one thing that you would like to change about Vijay?
So a couple of things for sure, actually, right? So one, from Whatfix experience, I've learned whatever we could do so far, because it was one way new category. So new category, you have less competition, but there are other challenges. So you can enter and get those deals and all. But when we are going into that multi-product, some of the newer products what we are building is existing categories, and really admire going behind the large ITSM category, right? Like, and so aggressive there. Similarly, like what Girish did for desk support and all. So that part definitely like to pick his brain. Like, how do you go behind existing category, large category, and make a dent there? Actually, that definitely. And second, serial entrepreneur. He's done a successful exit.
No, so I actually thought I'll follow Khadim until I raised Series A, from Valley VCs. But I think the borders are getting much closer, right? I think closing in IST for PST is possibility, and it's a reality. And even we have done like our first 6 figures and 6.5-figure deals from India without even having a proper sales team in US. Yeah.
And Khadim, when I talked to him previously, he mentioned to me that his cycle moves slightly PST. So he comes to office at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. and then goes back to home at 1 a.m.
When you do India-US corridor company, I think the operational challenges are one of the biggest hurdle, right? And I have seen my friends working in multinationals or other services company, like we say, burning candles at both ends. Sometimes they have meetings early in the morning, sometimes late in the evening. So when I was interviewing folks in US and all, they were scared to work in Indian companies. Hey, there's no work-life balance. Like suddenly I will have a call late in the night and sometimes in the morning. It's like too hard. Starting from scratch, you're building ground up the whole operations and all. You have liberty to think differently, right? So we thought, okay, why not just push India time, start as late as possible. Anyway, most of the engineers come at 11.
Actually, in India, we say we give you your mornings. For our US team, we tell we give you your evenings.
So we started going late. So 1, 2, I think that's where most of the leaders and everybody starts in India, majority of them. And in US, we pushed as much as possible people to start early, right? Like my CRO is in office at 5:30 a.m. My co-founder, Vara, is in office at 6:30 a.m. And we asked everybody to open up the calendar at 7 a.m. So at least we get solid 4 to 5 hours of overlap, not only with the customers, but also mostly important with our people.
Yeah, I think Khadim is also known for hiring legends like Wispy Dever.
That's why I'm here. Because somebody is helping me out there.
No, I think he has a fantastic eye for talent. We recently hired somebody who spent 5 years at Whatfix. I think I met a lot of people in account management, sales management, sales, go-to-market. But somebody who is very ambitious, but who is also very calm. Somebody who looked very aspirational, but at the same time who is very thoughtful. I think somehow he has this eye for finding people. And it was fantastic.
Yeah, so one way with what I have done or so far worked for Whatfix is actually maintaining relationship for several years with people whom you like. Actually keep talking to them, keep continuing building that relationship rapport, because you never know, at some point they would get excited and join you actually. So even for Wispy, I think I kept on pestering him for more than a year to join Whatfix. Like several times he said, no, I don't see this category. And he had several reservations. I kept going back to him every couple of months. Like said, we'll figure it out. And one fine day he got pissed off and said, okay, let's do it. So several people like that did that. Like the person he's talking about, we worked with him for a few years before he joined Whatfix. And several people actually who go out of Whatfix also come back.
Yeah. No, I think... this is something that I learned from multiple really good founders is when you want to bring somebody on board, interview is not a great process, right? Because you unless you spend time with them for a long time, so even I'm a big believer that so we recently hired our first head of finance and legal, Kailash. So we've been talking to him from almost like 2022. Then we engaged, had few chats with him in 2023. Then we told him, okay, we are not hiring. We don't want to hire in 2024. Then we went back in 2025 and said, okay, come on board, right? I think it also helps both sides. I'm also a big fan of anti-interview. So typically when we are hiring people, we are only convincing them and telling them all good things about the company, right? How great the company is, how great the team is, how great the product is, how good the traction is. But after we give an offer, we typically discourage people from joining us,
After giving the offer?
After giving the offer, because we tell them, look, we are a very early stage, so work-life balance would be really hard. There is a lot of risk. And I think so far you probably thought all the reasons why you should join. Now you should think all the reasons why you should not join. After that, if you feel you cross the threshold, then come and join. So we hired our head of sales called Eric Edmonds. So I was doing a lunch with him in Vegas. He came to see us at one of the conference. And he said, Vijay, what is this thing? Everybody in the Atomicwork team I spoke to is discouraging me from joining Atomicwork. I said, because do you really want this job, right? You have such a good job, big team, big charter. And why do you want to take so much pain, right? Because sometimes when you prepare people for reality, when they come on board, I think they're at the same wavelength, as the rest of the team.
I think, if you look at the journey of any startups, right, like it's a decade plus, right? And there will be several quarters where things will not be good. There'll be several quarters things will be really good, right?
Yeah.
So you want people, specifically in your core team, who believes in the mission, right? And that's very hard to judge in an interview and make somebody believe in your mission. You need to date them for long. So that's where you build the core team who are missionaries. Otherwise, generally, you'll end up with mercenaries. A couple of quarters down, they'll just go away.
And in your case, right, Wispy, Prakhar, all these guys have been for 10 years.
Yeah. So actually more, if you look at all my heads, I think the somebody who is lowest tenure is like 3.5 years. Otherwise, average tenure is like 7 to 10 years now. All my leaders.
Yeah. And somebody who joined as a BDR is today head of sales.
So Prakhar was the first employee of Whatfix. He joined as an AE. Today he heads the complete sales of North America. My Srihari, who was first top 10 employees, he now heads my global partnership. Kapil, who was my first PM, was 15 employee. Now he is my head of product. So several such examples. And also one thing which we have done, which he pointed out, was like solving things like engineering. Some way, if I look back, I think probably I've done that. Like my head of sales and solution engineering, he was my VP of engineering.
Actually, he's not a chief executive officer. He's a chief engineering officer. He takes every problem and applies engineering to solve it.
So my head of success actually had never done success. Right, Mohit. I don't know whether you guys know him. So he's a Georgia Tech guy. He was a founder. He came to Whatfix because he wanted to do product engineering. I said, okay, you want to solve a problem, I'll give you a problem. And I made him head of services and then made him head of a global success. Right. So my head of CISO, right, my head of information security and IT and all, he was my other engineering head. So
no wonder. Actually, that's one of the remarkable insights when you look at really good companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, even Oracle. The leadership tenure, especially senior leadership tenure, is, as I said, anywhere from 7-8 years to even 15 years. So the longer the senior leadership stays with the company, the more the company can take attacks, literal attacks, adapt to change. Because in history, they say, right, when you're going to a war, it's okay if you have an army of new soldiers, but you need some veteran generals, right, who have fought, who know how to organize, etc. I think most companies, even I personally have experienced, I think we underestimate the talent that we have. We overestimate the talent that we want to bring. The board always thinks this is the biggest job this person is doing, tells the founder that go out and look at people. I think consistently, I felt the talent that has seen ups and downs, as Khadim was saying from day one, has seen the evolution of the company, can actually be a much better general than even a new general who has won wars, right? I think you need some new people for sure, but ability to retain the core team for long and ability to grow some of them as he has grown is also a big inspiration, right?
I think the playbooks are changing very rapidly. I think everybody knows. Like what worked few years back may not work today. Probably with AI first, everything again will change. And this is not only how we build the products or how we build that use technology, but also how you do selling, how you do marketing. It's been changing, evolving. Uh, I think when people want to really go fast, sometimes they tend to go back to people who have been there, done there before. And those guys, when they come in, they try to replicate. Again, it's a hit and miss, actually. It works, sometimes it doesn't work, right? But I think when you want to create a playbook, you need some kind of a space to experiment, to create that, identify what's going to work. And for doing those experiments and creating that playbook, they need some kind of a safety, right? And when you are there with your company for several years, you actually become more bold in experimenting, right? You take more risk because you know you've been backed. You have your founders or the guys supporting you, and you're working for a mission. And 1 or 2 quarters, if something doesn't go well, fine. But if it works, I'll have a huge upside. So people, I think that's very important. If you have people who've been with you, maybe that example of general whatever, like they will experiment, they will take risk, right?
Yeah.
But the new guy will go with the tried and tested playbook. Maybe it works in this particular thing, it may not work. Thin line is there, like people might get complacent, right? But then what we could work around for that is like for every leaders, right? As a founder, you see things from a macro. You have board, you have other guys to push you to figure out like you're missing something. But for leaders, sometimes that is not there. So that exposure is required. So we gave budget to every leader that they can hire their advisors and mentors who've been there, done that in the industry, because probably they're doing the right thing, but if they are doing for the first time, they need to bounce off that and just get that confidence. So almost all my leaders have 1 or 2 industry veterans as advisors. Like my CRO has another CRO as an advisor. My CISO has another CISO as an advisor. My HR guy has another HR. Finance guy has a finance guy. So that what you don't know, I think that gets covered. That's the biggest piece actually, which hits when somebody is not able to grow.
But I think what he said is so true. I think the leaders who have psychological safety, right, always play the bigger game, right? If they're complacent, anyway, the churn will happen naturally, right?
Yeah.
But I think psychological safety is very, very key for leaders. It's a lot more important for leaders because then they will not take the boldest risk, right? Typically, everybody is trying to impress the CEO, and the CEO is trying to impress the board, right?
Yeah.
And when you have some of the people, I think one is psychological safety, as Khadim said, is very high, so that they can actually take bigger plays, bigger risks to try. They will fail in some. Second thing is also they will be very candid with founders because they have been there for early days. If you do something stupid, they will tell you it's stupid. But most new executives, they tell you, founder, what an amazing company you built, how great you are, how thoughtful you are, and how smart you are.
And when they put paper after 8 months, the founder, it was such an amazing company.
Right? So, actually, somebody said, I don't know who said this. Somebody said, most companies get destroyed after IPO because in the preparation for IPO, in order to make the company big, we bring like a lot of these new leaders.
Yeah.
Most of them turn out to be mercenaries, not missionaries. And it's amazing how many of them are worried about stock price on a day-to-day basis. Forget about an engineer. If engineer is worried about stock price day-to-day basis, you can understand. But at a CXO level, people who have been CXOs twice, they come to a third company as a CXO, still worried about stock price. Right? In Nutanix, I had like one of the policy was I had auto sell almost every quarter, irrespective of stock price, because you don't want to waste so much of your time and conversation, in that. Somebody can look at me and say, oh, what a mercenary this guy is, like, not holding the stock. The other way to look at it is, the guy really doesn't care, right? about, whether you do $30 more or $10 less, eventually it will even out, right? One of the things even at Atomicwork we do is even this year, right? We bought like a bunch of CMOs to come and talk in our leadership meeting about what did they do when they went from this tiny company to big company, right? They were a CMO. They didn't have budget. They didn't have brand. They didn't have dollars. They didn't have recognition. They didn't have analyst coverage, all that. Now we are actually bringing a bunch of CPOs to come and talk to the team, almost everybody. And then as he did, I have actually onboarded a go-to-market advisor, somebody who's been a CRO, president, and he said, I don't want any cash, but I said, no, you should actually take some cash so that I have a right to text you and call you when we want. And I tagged him with our new head of sales. So that way he has time, right? And similarly, we are actually bringing somebody as a product advisor, right? Who's been a CPO at like two really, really good companies, right? And then I have a CEO advisor called Sunil Poti. He just retired from Google. And we are not giving him stock or cash, but Sunil was my boss when I was at Nutanix. He's one of the amazing product thinkers and such an insightful guy. Recently he told me, Khadim, like the time to value for a product to prove time to value. Typical enterprise products a decade ago, right, had 90 days. So most POCs are like, 6-8 weeks, even 12 weeks. Then we said, hey, we need to condense this, bring it to 3-4 weeks. But if you look at in the AI, most products are giving the value, the proof of value in the first 5 minutes to 15 minutes. So he really challenged me. You should think deeply about how do you show value in 24 minutes, not 24 days, right? So I do talk to Sudesh Nair, who is just stepped down as a CEO of ThoughtSpot. He used to be our president of sales at Nutanix. And I connected a bunch of CTOs with all my engineering leads, created one WhatsApp group. And I said, okay, you guys have to continue to talk, because I think we underestimate external perspective sometimes, because we are so much in the moment that even if you are outside that situation, you might be able to spot the things, but if you're in the situation, you won't be able to spot the things. I can't emphasize, you don't need like an army of advisors, but every leader need somebody who they can go to in confidence, get confidence. Otherwise, as a CEOs, we are mostly in a hurry, right? However good we want to be with our team, we are more or less pushing them, and it's very hard for leaders also to operate, right? So sometimes my team thinks I have somebody who messages people at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. No, I wake up for 30 minutes and just, follow up, with folks. And we are generally, as founders, right, are like very... I think very few founders are like super friendly to their teams. Most of the time, we are pushing the team to the brink, constantly, right? And I often tell them, if you really feel like you can't negotiate with me, I think talk to, this person, right? Who could be your advisor. And I think it's so true, Actually, at some point, Khadim should write a book that should become like a founder's playbook, not SaaS playbook, not GTM playbook, founder's playbook. Because founders have so many advisors, even though they may not be advisors, like your investors, your board, your fellow founders, Constantly we are learning, we are exposed, right, to so much information, so much insights. So your learning loop is much faster. But a lot of your leaders are actually doing the work. As he said, he's here because somebody is doing the work. Same applies to me. They're in the work constantly. They're just doing the work. They don't have as many opportunities as we have as founders. So we need to be thoughtful and create them.
So just to add, like if you just, I want to simplify this, right? Like what happens if a CRO or a CMO or one of your leaders doesn't meet their target for 2 quarters? Board will ask them to fire.
Yeah.
Right? But it's founders, it's been always asked like, okay, think big, think long, right? Take that big steps, bold steps, right? But those steps can't happen in 2 quarters, right? So when your CXOs are measured for just 2 quarters, if they know if 2 quarters go bad, they're chopped, right?
Max they get is 4 quarters. Most of them are measured in 1 quarter, not even 2.
So what happens is whether they subconsciously or consciously, they start anchoring themselves that I cannot go beyond 2 or 3 quarters. And some of those steps, what they take are very short-sighted, right? They don't build that foundations very strong. And that's why you see, right? I think with the whole Valley thing, as soon as that money was stopped, everybody's growth plummeted, right? It's like grow at any cost, just throw money, right? I say throw $2, I'll get $1. So fundamentally, when you ask them, okay, now you have to be efficient also, you have to grow also, you have to retain also, you have to show value also. I've interviewed so many CXOs, most of the CXOs quit because then that funding was stopped.
Is so true.
They couldn't work without those constraints. With those constraints, they couldn't work with those constraints. So when your CXOs are actually, they know that they're going to be chopped in 2 or 3 quarters, they start taking very short-sighted steps actually, which is harmful in long run. Maybe short run, it might show some results. But founders have that luxury, right? 2 quarters doesn't go well, you'll be going back, firing a couple of CXOs, getting new CXOs, again go back to board and saying, okay, 2 or 3 times you can do it probably, right? After that, but you have longer lifeline compared to...
The buffer zone for founders is much longer than most leaders who come to companies.
Yeah. So it's very important to have those CXOs actually who believe, as we were again going back to that, like they believe in that mission. And if they are short-sighted, they will always think, after 3 years when I quit, what happens to my career? What do I put in my profile? What am I going to say in the next interviews or jobs? But the missionaries are the ones which you anchor them, like, think, boss, this is probably your last job.
Yeah.
Right? After this, you should be only advisor or you do something else. You don't have to work for living. You need to work only for fun. So they think long, like, okay, how do they take this company to 10 billion? Which is going to be like, I can also retire. So I think that whole mindset has to change to take bigger steps, to take bolder steps, that psychological safety, what you mentioned. And so though, not only for founders, that if founders cannot do it alone, they need that team also to think similarly.
And they need their investors also to think like the same way.
Yeah. I think, Khadim has found great investors. So I think he's, I think I spoke to a couple of his board members. They really love him, right? For how thoughtful he is. At the same time, how aggressive he is, right? How much he wants to change the status quo. At the same time, he wants to de-risk the change, right? I think sometimes we learn through experience, but typically, I think there are a lot of mercenaries, both in India or Valley, it does not matter, right? They're good for a battle, but a startup is like a war, it takes a decade to win. It's not like one battle you go, win or lose. But you also want people who are willing to learn. What happens is when you bring these people who have such a short tenure in their head, because they know that the board is going to judge, right? The first board meeting, welcome on board, it's all great, awesome. In the second board meeting, which is in a quarter, it's like, okay, where is the data? Where is the growth? And they obviously get very jittery. I think founders can give confidence, create an ecosystem. But I think the founding teams, when they grow along with the company, just like as founders are growing with the company, I think amazing companies could be built, right? I think probably he has the longest tenure in leadership compared to most companies. No, it's actually true, Khadim. Most companies, the tenure of senior leadership is less than 3 years.
Yeah, that's right. I think one part which people miss actually, even in the boards and even in some of the time founders also, when they keep replacing the CXOs. On the paper, you have an org structure where there's a CXO, there's a VPs, or there's a directors. You think you remove the CXO, get a new CXO, things should work theoretically, but it doesn't, right? The whole tree shakes. You might start losing good people who are with you because there's a leadership change, the orientation has changed, or thought process has changed. And again, getting back to that shape, even what it was performing, I think it might take a lot more time. So the collateral damage people forget.
Actually, IPOs do most collateral damage to companies, because you bring a lot of CXOs.
So don't take company public. That's the advice.
No, actually, not don't take company public. I think be confident to take a company public, and while retaining a lot of your founding leadership.
With your existing leadership, rather than bringing in.
At least like if not more than half of your leadership does not come organically, then you have a problem, because then the rest of the new leadership does not know how the leadership in this company behaves and operates. If they see, even if let's say you have 10 executives, right, under you, if 5-6 of them came organically, if they operate differently, these new leaders will also adapt, right? End of the day, we are all social animals, right? I'm trying to learn from Khadim. Khadim is trying to learn from someone. And so we adopt faster. I think organic leadership is such an underrated thing. I think on paper, everybody is amazing, right? I mean, these days I get amazed, somebody spends less than 2 years and says, I took this company unicorn. And I typically believe in what Karthik Reddy of Bloom says. Unless you spend 3 years with Bloom, I don't think you have actually be part of the Bloom yet. They have this, I think, ceremony, I think informal one, to say, if you've been with the Bloom for 3 years, then, you're really contributed. Because it takes a year for anybody to figure out the company, a year to actually take bets, and year 3 to really deliver value. But these days, look, everybody is like GTM at whatever, OpenAI, and GTM at Anthropic. And people say in 6 months, I have took the company from 10 million to 60 million. And I tell them, you should be a founder. If you really have that skill, you should be a founder.
Yeah.
You should not be, right? Because you have some magic sauce that you don't have. Even my philosophy is build a lot of organic leadership. I think great companies had amazing organic leadership. Even now, you go back and look at SVP tenure at Amazon or a CXO tenure at Microsoft.
Any large
company,
enterprises,
right?
I think
a lot of organic leadership.
I think why to even go there? Look at our companies. Like, we have tens of billions of dollar companies, right? TCS, Wipros, Infosys. I think they all build organic leadership, and they did phenomenal work.
And the founders rotated for different jobs, as you were saying. Somebody who was running HR went and ran delivery. Somebody who ran delivery went and even ran, finance and hiring, university. I think some of those things, I hope, we go back to roots, instead of like this new playbooks, right? I think a lot of new playbooks are shitty playbooks, honestly, or anyone who says this is a great playbook that we figured out in like last 3 years is not a well-tested playbook. It's not a time-tested playbook, but things that have worked, will most likely to work. That's why they say if the company has survived for 50 years, most likely that company will survive for another 50 years versus somebody who's been around.
I think you congratulated Microsoft on surviving 50 years and being the leader.
I mean, it's amazing, right? We actually did this small campaign, Khadim. We created a congratulatory message, because think about the company went through 4-5 massive changes and hyper growth, the best company in the world, to okay, this company will not survive, to now being the most talked about company. It's not easy, right? I mean, it's so hard to build a company for 10 years. I can't even imagine what it takes to build for 50 years, like Tata's in India, like 100+ years institution, right?
One of my, actually, a very good joke was there. Like, one of my professors told in my college, right? And this was like 20 years back, of Microsoft. They said Microsoft always misses the bus. But they run fast, get into the bus, and get to the driver's seat.
Yeah.
I think it's happened again in AI.
Yeah. I think that's the power of install base, Khadim.
Yeah.
See, the power of install base.
Not only, of course, they have that distribution mode, but along with that, they have also built that agility and that alignment. The whole organization goes behind that mission, and they move so fast on those.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at the number of leaders who put messages. Jeff Taper, who is the president of M365, Microsoft 365, started as a SharePoint developer. I think he was like, created the SharePoint to, running a division, to Srini Raghavan, to so many CVP, so many presidents are with the company for 20 years to 30 years, right? More than half of the journey of the company. I mean, it's amazing, I mean, I recently saw one EA, I don't want to name her. She's been with Microsoft for like 36 years, right? She probably knows, every technology executive ever met their executive, and institutional knowledge of, who is important, who is not important, and what not. I think in this world of AI, which is rapid change, I feel we should reflect back on what are those timeless things, right? Organic leadership, as you said, is an amazing thing. Psychological safety, and even like providing that growth opportunity through mentors are very key from a very early stage of company. What I really like about Khadim is, so you meet a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So first time you meet some star founder, you get really impressed. Second time you meet, then you think, okay, he's okay, same level. Then you meet fourth time, you think, how did this guy become even successful, right? But I think some people are so thoughtful. In every interaction, you feel like you're learning. I think Khadim is certainly one of them.
Yeah, it's like becoming too much about me. I should talk about Atomicwork.
So, Khadim, one interesting point is you have really demonstrated that humility works. So how are you able to hire humble folks in your company? Because there's a very thin difference between when performance can be replaced by arrogance.
So I think he already mentioned that, like, when people join, right, they try to adapt.
Yeah.
Right. So culture, right? Like, what is culture? If you are a very small company, let's say 15, 20, 30 people, you have not defined culture. But the culture actually starts reflecting how founders are behaving on the floor.
Yeah.
That becomes the culture. And then it starts percolating down. Your people start imitating that. Like, okay, as a founder, if I want to be ruthless, I think people know that I like that and they want to be imitating that. So it starts percolating. When you start scaling, there are some cultural, what do you call that? Subculture starts getting created, but of course, majority part actually gets reflected. So I think if you can maintain that culture and keep aligning people, I think overall it starts building in the same direction, right? I think there are some companies with a DNA of being very aggressive. There are some companies which are very thoughtful or innovative, because that's all actually percolating over several years and the culture gets built. So I think just focusing on that, keep aligning them and keep looking at that. If I have to give one example on culture, for example, when we started in 2014-15, money was not that easy to come by. So we had one cultural trait. So we did survey in the company saying that, okay, what do you feel when you think about Whatfix or the founders and all? So one word came very frequently was frugal, right? Because they realized that, okay, founders don't want to spend too much. It worked fine for first few years, then it backfired. Because I remember one of the days, one of my directors, someone came to me, it was 2017 or 2017 or 2018, saying that, oh, Khadim, I want to buy this software. And Khadim, this software is very cheap. And now, by that time, we had raised Series B, we had $20, $30 million, $40 million in bank. I don't want to buy cheap. I want a software which is the best, which can help us actually to move really fast. I said, like, why this software? Why not the other one, which I know this is the industry leader? He said, no, that is expensive. Now that backfires my culture. So I have to consciously now change the culture. So we changed that frugal, but not cheap.
Yeah.
Right? Today we again change after a few years. Everything we do is best in class. So some of the things you consciously evolve as well. So as I was mentioning, like the way we behaved on the floor, that frugality, everybody started imitating, but some of the places it was not required to get reflected on the activities what you do on the ground.
And Vijay, coming on the culture, right? You absorbed a lot from Dheeraj on building culture.
Yeah. No, I think one of the amazing things is a lot of us think the hunger and humility cannot exist, but actually they can coexist, right? You can be very ambitious, right? At the same time, you're very humble, and you can operate with heart. I think certainly I learned that with Dheeraj at Nutanix was I think raise the ambition, right? Let the world say whatever it wants to say, right? So naysayers will always be there, saying this company will not succeed. Why are they doing like really bold thing? And actually, Nutanix started after public cloud was already a thing to build a private cloud, right? And even today, it trades much higher than most SaaS companies on the market. Eventually, products wins, right? And the product comes from certain core principles that you institutionalize, right? So we want to be, we want to have, right, this high ambition, and at the same time, operate with heart and operate with humility, and be honest, right? So the Nutanix culture was like very simple. Even at Atomicwork, we call atom culture or atomic culture. So hire people who have high agency and operate teams with high agency. High agency is about desire to be self-directed, right? So you're not looking for too much direction from everyone around you, right? And you cannot operate with high velocity if you don't have trust. So the T stands for like trust, and O stands for ownership, right? The owner's mindset, which he spoke about, right? We want people to operate like frugal, but that does not mean you go for the cheapest thing. You still go for the best in class, right? You think long term and say, does it really add value for us? And our industry, the craft is very important, right? As more things get automated, the experience matters. So mastery is like a big thing for us. So Atom is like agency, trust, owner's mindset, and mastery. Do they have desire to get better at the thing that they are doing? They may be great at coding, but do they have a desire to write even better code? At whatever. They may be good at pitching. They could be good at this. That's how we started. And then we realized two things are missing from it. This is team-centric, individual-centric. We then got I and C, which is atomic. Impatience, right? Our industry does not have respect for patience, right? You got to really move fast, okay? Because if you don't disrupt yourself, then
Somebody else.
somebody will disrupt you. And then customer obsession, right? Because at the end of the day, we show up at work to deliver value to a customer through all our work, right? And but we're a small team, we're like 50, 60 people right now. But one of the things I always tell people is velocity is the oxygen for a company, in the early stages, right? The faster you operate, the better oxygen. It's the oxygen for the company, And I think one good thing we did was we went and picked people thoughtfully. The first 25 almost came from the network. Next 25, more than half came from the network. Now we said, hey, we should also bring people who are not from the network. Otherwise, it will become too much of me too, right? Me too in the sense, okay, same thought process, etc. And but look, human capital is also very efficient. We can't hire hundreds of people, so we have put some cap saying, okay, we are not going to cross this cap until we get to a certain level, right? I also have upper cap, of 999 for the company saying, okay, we are not going to be more than 999, because we also have to build very human capital efficient companies. Otherwise, if you also go, get to 5,000 people, get to whatever 600, 800,
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, right? The market will not respect because there are so many incumbents at the same stage, right? The more people you have, the more problems company will have. Actually, throughput goes down. The more people you have, somebody said this, I forgot. In a 10,000 people company, the square root of 10,000, which is 100 people, are doing half of the company's work, which is more or less true, by the way. So I think it's super. One of the amazing things. A lot of people said, "Are you stupid? Why did you start? It's so painful. You could have been a VC. You could have been whatever." But there is so much joy in seeding things. I think I get at least a lot of satisfaction. I think there is an amazing opportunity now to build products, to build, do a lot of new things while holding a lot of core things, which are timeless.
I hope being VC is not easy as well.
It's super tough, right? I have been a founder. Being founder was, I can say, much easier.
So Khadim, I'll basically tell you, I think every job is hard, right? I think
anything you do actually.
One of the GE CEO, I forgot if it is Jeff Immelt or somebody, who said, every job looks easy when you are not doing it. When you are doing it, then you know how hard the job is, right? But I think VC gives a lot of skills, but it also takes away a lot of skills from you, right? Foundership gives you a lot of skills. It also takes a lot of skills away from you, right? I'm brutal. I have 2 young kids, I spend very little time with them because of this constant travels, right? And somebody who loves traveling, it may be a great thing. I don't really love traveling, but I have to travel because, I probably did like 16 trips last year to US back and forth.
It's part of job now.
See, he still has some black hair. Mostly my hair is white. Right?
For Khadim to have black hair, somebody in his team must need to have a grey hair.
Many. So I think just to add, actually, because we've been talking a lot about growing team organically and all, like it should not be also taken that there's too much of complacency. There's a status quo.
Yeah.
So see, let me give a couple of examples. Like I'll take a Whatfix example. So we do ask these questions every 2 quarters. All the leaders who are there currently, they might be for doesn't matter how long. Are they still true? Are they still right leaders for that particular job? Just to quote some examples, like we even have instances, I don't know how many Indian companies have, demoting people. Because Indians are scared to demote. They will fire. Yeah. Because there are some people who we would have promoted because of XYZ reasons, but they are not able to perform at that level. Can they go back? Of course, a lot of people don't take it and they quit, but there are some people who say, probably that's the right thing for me.
Yeah.
So we have taken those steps. I don't know, but probably we are one of the very, very few or one of the first SaaS companies to call all people back for 5 days office.
Yeah.
We did like 2.5, 3 years back. And I've been propagating because we believed it is not going to work. Yeah. Every leader opposed this, or every director was opposing that nobody's going to come back. Nobody calls. Today, everybody's calling back.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
We did that same thing in London office and San Jose office, 5 days.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes you have to take those steps. One of the complaints, of course, even though we are doing fine, we still have a lot of attrition. Yeah. Right? Like there are the people get tempted, people who get Series A, Series B, they poach. So I'll get some good director or someone from Whatfix and make him the leader. And one of the complaints what people have at Whatfix is too much of change. So even though we have that good amount of leadership there, but we push so much of change and so much of velocity that they have to change the processes. They have to change the style of working every 6 to 12 months. And many of the people couldn't adapt to that and they quit. Right. And so another thing which I just got inspired by Gokul Rajaram, right? We abolished designations.
Yeah.
Because what happened, everybody was asking, I have spent 2 years in my position, I want to get promoted. Now, spending 2 years in your position doesn't mean you need to get promoted. Promotion means you need to take more ownership. So how do we change that ownership part? So we removed designations. We said, okay, it has to be role-based, right? Like how you take ownership. If somebody is a head of content, doesn't matter now the person is director or senior VP or VP. Why should I change? Unless that person takes more ownership. So I think we are seeing gradual change. In last 1 year, we brought this. Of course, there was a lot of pushback because everybody wants to be glorified, some designations on LinkedIn. Now people are asking, I've seen several folks coming back in last 6 months saying, what else I can do? I am head of XYZ or I am leading this particular mobile platform. Now, if I have to go to next level, what do you think I should do? Now they've stopped asking, saying, I've been spending 2 years doing the same thing. Of course, I've done well. Now you promote me. Now it's a ownership first and the promotion or designation or role change would come later. So very bold such changes we have done, which generally I haven't seen in many US, even Indian companies or even US companies.
I think he said a beautiful thing, which is there's a constant change. That's why Whatfix is successful, right? I think most people cannot take change. Even early teams, founding teams, cannot take change. I think one of the things I often almost repeat myself, telling myself that, repetition does not spoil the prayer, which is we not only have to build AI native product, we have to build AI native company where human capital has such a high premium, right? Because if we don't instill some of those things very early, then the problem with these designations is, it's so funny. Once somebody told me, I think you should hire like another 30 people in your group. I said, why? Because VP should have 300 people in their group. I was like, okay, but people cannot be proxy, right? Because the moment we create these layers and hierarchies, people tend to hire more people. So they know that, once I have 100 people, I can be a VP. Once I have 500 people, I can be SVP. It typically the platoon culture, right? Which is, okay, you're a squadron leader once you have a squadron, But I think that world is changing dramatically, right? With AI, it's I believe, I think we will have like this individual managers who are doing IC work, managing a lot of this AI,
Managing
things,
agents.
agents, and that's a reality actually. I mean, one change we just recently did. I'm a big believer that engineering pods, product team pods are a very good structure. So we had this typical 8 to 10 people thing. So recently we broke that and said no pod can be more than 3 people. One really senior engineer, one one junior. That's it. Everybody else has to be an AI thing, right? There's a lot of pushback and whatever, but I think now people are saying, thank God, we don't need to spend 1 hour in status meeting every day. It's only like 5 minutes, right? And they will also have high agency, right? Because now the surface area is, hey, we can do a lot more, otherwise, like, even a 50 people team, I don't know who is exactly working on this. So when I have to give a feedback, I'll give it to, product manager. The product manager gives it to Inch pod gives it to the Inch lead of the pod, gives it to the engineer. Now I know who are the persons who you directly ping, right? And if you cut through layers, I think layers kill company. One of this Bain senior partners, he wrote about founders mentality. It's a beautiful video also. It's there on YouTube. And one of the beautiful things he says is, you start, growth comes. Growth creates complexity because you hire people, set up processes, bring products, and complexity kills growth, right? That's why companies die, right? Yeah, basically complexity actually kills the growth. So the first killing is it will slow us down. Second killing is it will make people so complacent. Third thing is, you actually don't grow, you are regressing, and eventually companies die, right? He says, in order for you to escape that loop, you need to figure out this founder's mentality in the business, right? Founder's mentality does not mean they need to be a founder, but people who have high agency, high hunger, can operate with high velocity. He has a beautiful thing, and we were actually a big fan. I got introduced to that concept at Nutanix, saying, we need to have founder's mentality, because founders can only be 1 person, 3 people, at max 10. But founder's mentality or founder's mindset could be there in an entire company with everyone.
I think it's not easy as well. Like, of course, in spirit, you want everybody to have that mentality. But what happens when you start growing as a company, when you have 800, 900, 1,000 people? I think a lot of people, when you go as a lower in the hierarchy, they start working for appraisals. Right? They start working for the KPIs, what they define, right? I'll give an example. I think recently you would have seen last 2 years, a lot of middle management getting fired in large companies and all. Now, we also went through one exercise where we said we also want to reduce the hierarchy, because agility is not there if you have too much of hierarchy. Like, I got frustrated in between, like when I wanted to get some decisions or some things to be executed, by the time it goes down and comes back, like it's like 1.5 months, 2 months.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of pushback, so much of debate, so much of discussions, and I said, okay, we need to flatten it, right? Now, how do we flatten it? So now, as an organization, you just, like, if you're 100 people, you can say, okay, these 5 people are not required, or you change them to different teams, or you restructure or something like. Then you start making rules, right? You will start making rules saying, okay, you need to have minimum 3 people or 5 people or 8 people pod. Otherwise, you'll not become manager. If you don't have 3 managers or 4 managers span of control, then you won't become director. If you don't have 4 directors, you don't become VP. Just giving an example. It works probably in a year or 2, because now you don't need too many directors. You need to justify that, okay, there has to be enough work and all. Because now that's thought process intent here is that, okay, people will ask for more ownership. I will have more work, then my span will increase, and then I will get promoted or I'll move on. At some point, it just happens that people create work. Right? You unnecessary, as you were saying, platoon culture, right? Like, you start building your platoon or hierarchy because you want to get promoted. So you create something which is even not required. So that structure, the intent, what you created, like, okay, you need to have span of control to grow, because at that particular point of time, you wanted to solve that problem. But then people start working around over a period of time, you have to again change. So I think the change is constant. What worked today probably will not work tomorrow. And you have to constantly relook at it again and again and again. Something probably, like we say, might not have worked for XYZ company. In that particular constraints, in that particular time period, in that particular velocity of the structure of the company, it may not have worked. But for you, the dynamics might be completely different. You might have to experiment that. But again, as you go the journey, you have to keep thinking. So a lot of first principle thinking is required. Doesn't matter you have people who've been there, done that, or you have seen or you have heard a lot of founders. You will have to keep thinking because your variables will be different.
And Khadim, one thing is there that you built Whatfix over a period of 10 to 15 years. Do you think founders today have luxury of that kind of a time? Because the ecosystem first is, nobody first believed in digital adoption, right? So first 5 or 8 years was about surviving, and then it was about growth.
Yeah, so it's been 11 years for us now. I took 4 years to get to $1 million. I think
the longer you take to get to $1 million, the better company you'll build.
No, but today, if you take $1 million, 4 years to get $1 million, most of the VCs will write you off, right? This company is dead. So you see, but a lot of variables have changed, right? If I start today, probably I will have 100 or 200 companies as a potential design partners. If I can get to and convince 3 or 5 of them, I can validate and get to PMF very quickly compared to what at that point. When we started, nobody believed we can do enterprise sales in US. Everybody used to ask the question, okay, which category this is? What's the budget or TAM of that category? Whose appraisal gets impacted with this particular category, right? Like questions were asked, where somebody was going to pay $100 for this, right? So now that conviction of building a category, conviction of selling large ticket size to US, playbook's been established. So probably that maturity of the ecosystem also helps you to cut down a couple of years, probably, right? Because you don't have to relearn everything. So because of that, also the patience has gone down, right? Like even VCs or even the founders, if they don't get to, let's say, $1 million in a couple of years, probably half the time, people feel something is wrong. But I would say, I think it doesn't matter. That's my personal opinion. It doesn't matter how fast you get to first million, because you're figuring out the product market fit. You might have to do 1 pivot, 2 pivot. You need to find out the right segment, right pricing point, value delivery, product iterations, etc. But once you get there, it's all about GTMF. Have you figured out your go-to market? Have you figured out the scale channels which can scale? And the more dollars you throw, it has to scale fast. So from there, journey has to be more predictable.
And what about, when the founders are fighting to build a category? Let's say you both are sitting at opposite end of a spectrum. You are building for the largest possible category, and you have created a new complete category. What about that?
So again, see, even for the new category today, I think the fundamentals are still more or less similar. Like even when he would have started Atomicwork, even if it's existing category, he still needs first few design partners, because he still would have a differentiation compared to the existing players. So he needs some initial believers. Even for new category, it's the same thing. So I feel getting those initial design partners have become relatively much easier, or you have a bigger pool actually available today. So at least that PMF journey today can be faster. Doesn't matter whether you're existing category or new category.
And if you reflect back, what was the thing that you reached the first mil ARR in 4 years, let's say by 2017 or 2018, but in the last 7 years, you would have been among the top 5 fastest growing companies from India in enterprise space?
Yeah, probably. I don't know much about the other numbers, but yeah, that's what been told. Like we are still growing reasonably well, and so that's what I was saying. Like once you figure out your product market fit and you have figured out few channels, and you keep evolving, right? You keep actually, the more dollars you put in your engine, and if the engine is able to scale, you can continue to scale in terms of ARR. One thing which companies get stuck, right? For example, some companies get stuck at 5. See, there was one good statistics, like among the companies which are venture backed, minimum $3 million, only 1.6% companies reach 100 million ARR.
Yeah.
Why is that? Many companies get stuck at 60s, 40s, 20s, because see, I'll talk about enterprise. Anyway, you guys also in enterprise, right? When you start, probably you are okay to do 10K, 20K deals. Right? We even do $1,000 deals, right? But when you are now at getting to 100 mil, 200 mil, you need 8 million, 10 million quarters. Now you cannot get, let's say, 100 customers or 1,000 customers every year at 10K. You need to start getting 100K customers. At some point, you need to start getting $250K or $1 million customers and multi-million dollar customers. Now, when you change the orbits of your ACVs, your buying persona or the budget owners also change. Your decision makers also change. For $1 million, probably for 20K or 50K or even 100K, you might want to even go to VPs. Or for $250K, $1 million, $2 million, you might won't even go to CIOs or CDOs or someone at CXO level. Now, I can go to a manager operations or someone and say, okay, I'm going to help you improve your Salesforce productivity or ERP productivity, 100K, 50K, fine. If I go to say, okay, I'm going to charge you $2 million for the same problem statement and the check goes for signature to CIO, you say, like, isn't that a big problem enough? So my product market fit now has to change, because I am going now, my buyer is different, the budget owner is different. Now the problem statement also has to evolve. So the problem statement, instead of solving that one application problem, which I was getting 50K, 100K, now I have to evolve my stack. So initially I was solving web, mobile. So I was solving full stack adoption problem, then added my analytics and all to measure. And my problem statement evolved, saying I go to CXO and say, okay, I'm going to give you the ROI of a whole of your software stack investment, which spends to several hundreds to billions of dollars for a large enterprise CIO. I said, okay, fair. If I'm spending $500 million, maybe $3, $4, $5 million I can spend, because I'm going to derive ROI, right, on that. So, but to answer that question of a CIO, my product or my suite has to evolve. So I think as the founders want to change that orbit, they need to keep rethinking how my product market fit based on that persona also has to keep evolving. And if they do, probably the journey might have less hiccups.
Yeah. And as Vijay said, like, you are one of the most thoughtful people in the enterprise space that I have met. So how much as a founder you keep your time divided between, this evolution of the company versus the execution phase?
You see, I follow a principle called management by exception, right? So most of my people know, right? If I'm not asking questions, if I'm not poking nose, I think things are working fine.
Yeah.
If things are not working fine, I deep dive a lot, right? So that's why it's very important to build that trusted leadership who can actually also keep evolving and keep running that function more smoothly, so that you are free to actually look at the what you're going to do as a company. You're going to evolve in the next 2 to 5 years. So you can build your organization, you can get new leaders in place, you can experiment more stuff, you can actually go and talk and validate the bigger problem statements and all. So that's what I do a lot. I like in December when I went to US, the trip specifically was, I didn't even go to my office actually in Bay. I was just on the East Coast and just meeting all pharmaceutical companies, life science companies, because I wanted to build an industry playbook. Met so many CIOs there and came back and just changed a lot of things because of that. So if I was actually putting too much of time on my operations and processes, maybe I would not have been able to do that. So at some point, some things broke as well. So I went so deep into rebuilding that particular department processes. And I went to a level where I started sending mails directly to ICs of that department, which was 200 people, saying, okay, I need report from you every week. Because now I felt that has to be fixed. So I feel founder also has to be very agile. Like they can zoom out and look at the large problems, investigate in the market, come back and change that strategy or something, as well as can actually zoom in so much actually that they can go to IC level and actually work with them very closely to solve their basic tactical problems.
And how do you deal with board? Let's say you mentioned that offline in the conversation. The last 3 years, the macro has been very unstable. So how do you fix your expectations with your board so that the pressure doesn't come on your team for the growth?
Pressure is always going to be there, right? But I think some of these pressures are also healthy, right? Like as we were all debating, right? Like we also have to set the pace. So when you set the pace, actually you push the leaders to run also as per the pace and keep evolving. Same way, actually, healthy pressure from the board is also required to set the pace for the founders also, and they also because they also talk to a lot of other companies, right? If he's doing something very different in my category, I think somebody brings in, I'll have to be thinking, okay, maybe can I get disrupted? Right? Can I have to think differently? So that way it helps in terms of aligning and setting the pace from the board. Also, you need to balance out. So as you grow, when I was actually, let's say 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, you set very ambitious targets. And we know that even if we miss it by 50%, 40%, it's fine. Because I want to go 3x, 2.5x, 2.2x, also it's fine, right? Like 3 to 9 ki, if I can do 3 to 7 or report 3 to 6.5, we'll figure it out. It's fine, right? But now as when you start scaling, because the organization is much larger, and if I set a goal saying, okay, I need to have a $10 million quarter, I feel it's very ambitious. Practically, it has to be, let's say, for example, 6, and we end up at 6. I am happy. Probably board is happy because everybody knew that it's going to be harder. But, the shoulders are dropped across the whole sales department because they believe we missed. Something is wrong with the company. So now equation changes. Now you need to start narrowing down what practically it's possible versus the expectations, what you said at the board and as a leadership. So that margin actually has to keep narrowing down over a period of time. I've also learned the hard way.
Yeah. When C2 scale, somebody told me your goal versus whatever realistic thing, you can have 100% margin at seed. You can have like 75 at A, 50 probably at B. By the time you get to C, it can't be like, even 20%, right? Because predictability is also important. As I said, like people perceive differently. Founders think, hey, I know that I have set a hyper-realistic goal. You can't go now tell the team that I have set a hyper-realistic goal.
And nobody's going to aim for that.
But even if he knows, say it's 6 million quarter, but but he set a target of 10, the salespeople certainly will think there is something wrong because we have not gotten to 10 that we are supposed to get, right? But I think the founders, as he said, product needs to evolve at every stage for the size of the deal or size of the segment that you want to go to. I think even founders' thought process, board management also has to evolve, right?
I think when you're doing, let's say 1 to 3, 3 to 9, that initial journey, I think generally 99% of the times, I think your TAM is not a problem. Because I think you have enough headroom or enough room to grow. It doesn't matter how the industry is performing, how the macros also relatively won't impact so much because you don't need that many deals. But when you are actually looking at $10, $20 million quarters, actually, then other variables starts coming into picture. How is the macro doing actually, right? How's your category doing? That's one of the questions you said initially, right? How is the category doing? Because those variables start impacting you as well. So when you set the targets with the boardroom, I think now we as a founder, you should not only go with saying that, okay, I'm going to be very ambitious and go from X to Y. I think they need to actually take those other variables of the market, macro variables, your competition variable, your category variable, the segment which you are catering, or the sector which you are like, is the sector specific headwind? Like if I'm going only for federal and then Doge, right? You can't, right? So those variables also should be taken into the planning and actually put in the perspective to the board and then actually set those expectation realistic. Of course, you can have 10-20% buffer, but not like 75% at A level.
And how much do you think in this AI world the previous revenue is protectable? Like, is there many headwinds coming to the revenue that you have built?
Yeah, so see, when headwind comes, actually everything becomes hard. Like every dollar is questioned, right? I think if I have to give a simple example, 2020, 2021, because now as I started growing, I think I have to start measuring other variables I was mentioning. Start measuring the variables, public SaaS companies, how they are performing in the US, because we don't have much comparables in India in the public market. So one simple metric, like sales and marketing efficiency, magic number. I think 2020, 21, 22, I think if you guys have tracked, it was like 0.73, 0.75, even 8 range. That means every dollar you spend on sales and marketing, you get 0.7, 0.8 back net. Today, if you see the public SaaS company, it's 0.5.
Yeah.
And we are talking about that's benchmarks. We are talking about the CRM leaders or HR HCM leaders or ITSM leaders. All those guys are involved in the public benchmark. So what does it mean? It means that for every dollar you spend, now you're only half back.
Yeah.
It become like at least 35-40% harder. Why? Because everybody is rationalizing. They are taking more time to take a decision. Same thing, it also happens in renewals, right? Okay, I want to move fast. Let's question asked. I want 300 seats. I bought 350 as a 50 buffer because I'm going to grow. Now everybody will come back saying, okay, I thought I will grow to 350. I'm not going to 350. In fact, 300 has come down to 250. I need to cut down my spend. I need to rationalize my budget because I've been asked to. So there is hard. I think advantage. I think India here is. I think there's we are in the business of SaaS, right? Software as a service. The second S keeps forgot. Like everybody forgets that. Only software part they focus and the service part they forget. For us, actually, it was even more important because it's a new category. Even the buyers didn't know what to do with this. So we had to focus on second part, success and service a lot. Probably that helped us to stay and continue to grow.
Yeah, actually, I think even before salesperson, we hired head of customer growth in US, right? So even before we hired head of sales.
I didn't do that, but I would advocate that.
Yeah. So before our head of sales, we hired head of customer growth, right? So when I actually joined, the moment we got like our first couple of 6+ figure deals, I'm like, okay, we got to have that. I think it makes a ton of difference, right? I think we forget that AI will replace everything. I think buying will still be done by humans. That engagement of renewal, expansion will still be decided by humans. that human touch is very important, right? AI might automate all the things till the buying, right? But even after they buy, it might help track better. It might help, drive usage, etc. Actually, the funny story, our first customer, we had sold one deal in Seattle, and I went and met the CIO after the deal, and he said, he was like, it's okay, we don't need to meet, we can chat. I said, no, I'm in Seattle, so let's meet for lunch. So I met him, and he said, you should hire a sales guy. I said, why do you say that? He said, I told your guys who are involved in the process, you are expensive. Even without telling the value, the guy immediately dropped the price. I assumed he's not a sales guy, right? So, but he also said another thing, good companies, most companies sell, then they stop meeting the customer. They only meet, just for the invoice. Good companies meet the customers even after the sale. But great companies engage with customers in a cycle, of a cadence. I think that is also very under-talked. I would highly encourage, from our own experience. She started driving expansion. I was like, hey, we just deployed. It's not even 6 months. Why are you being aggressive? And she's like, no, we need to, because we're delivering a lot more value, because we are having those conversations. And she actually started driving expansion. And I would highly encourage, especially if you're in enterprise, get the head of customer growth. They can handle success, support, engagement, all that initially. It makes a ton of difference, right? If because after first 10 customers, it's very hard for founders to talk to every customer, every month, right? But you need that cadence, I think the real service part of software, which everybody is getting excited, is not that service, but actually, how do you ensure that your customer is getting value? Because if customer does not get value, you will churn. Your churn is actually a product adoption, usage, enablement problem. It is, quite a bit of that.
Right? Customer success also becomes a very good mechanism to actually feedback to the product. Right? If you don't have that again, that loop closes. Actually, you don't have that loop, it becomes very, not only actually for fixing the current problems of your product, but also identify the adjacent problems which you can solve and scale up at some point of time. So over a period of time, when you want to become a multi-product company, or you want to increase your product portfolio or size of your product value, I think that becomes
I think without customer success, you get a very shallow feedback. With customer success, you get a very deep feedback about adjacency opportunities, coexistence, the ecosystem, customer thought process. And I was amazed, customers showed a roadmap for the year as we entered this year. And they had a whole bunch of slides of all the things that are happening in their business. And our PMs could not have gotten that visibility if we didn't had, our head of customer growth and, these forward deployed engineers, because they went and they said, okay, customer actually has a big plan for the year. So we are playing one piece. In that piece, these 3 things are very key. If we do these 2 things, our value to customer goes up. If we do the third thing, we will also expand with customer.
In fact, I think when we were talking about the pod, right? Even in engineering, we have engineering pod with the design and product managers also. 3 to 4 years back, what we decided, every engineering pod should have anchor customers. Right? Because whatever they do, there should be an impact.
Absolutely.
At that point, I had an apprehensions is it going to be easy for every engineering pod to even get exposed to customers, and will customers reciprocate? But having that customer success in between and building such a solid relationship, I think it was just such smooth. Even the customers were happy to talk and say, okay, I would like to see that impact what you guys are building actually. And they were very, very open. In fact, in second, third, fourth product what we built, we got design partners. And within 30 days, three design partners which we have, because we will not roll out a product unless we have 3 design partners. And you can say at least 60-70% of the design partners are Fortune 500 companies.
Customers love to co-create in enterprise. In enterprise, they love to co-create.
I was positively surprised.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to discuss is, how do you make sure this AI world, what is noise and what is value? Because the noise is companies reaching 100 million ARR within 18 months.
Yeah. See, we had this noise even last decade. Okay, Slack got to whatever 100 million. Zoom got to 100. DocuSign got. and things like that. I think we'll always have that noise, but you also know, look, the what's the first principle? It's easy to acquire revenue. It's much easier to churn that revenue. The harder it is to acquire that revenue, the longer you will keep, right? The insertion matters and depth in the workflow matters, right? For example, you also know the churn of a lot of those AI guys, and people have no loyalty because it's mostly individuals or prosumers buying this. I think you need to know, are you building for the individual? Go aggressive, go hyper with scaling, raise ton of money. Are you building for the team as a software? Are you building for the enterprise, right? So we are very clear we're building for the enterprise. So we'll probably the slowest one to the 100, but our chances of that 100 to billion is much better than any of these individual guys. So I think founders need to know whom they are building for, what they are building for, and you will always have outliers. Always we had outliers, right? Even 20 years back, you had an outlier. There will be some company which has gotten fastest to $1 billion, right? And but those things don't matter, right? Slack eventually it's a beautiful software, great product, amazing love from end users, but you still cannot survive without email, without calendar. Those capabilities, right? Eventually you have to exit, right? So if you build for a team, there is advantage, but eventually you have to build for the enterprise because business uses the software. If the same business gets a chat from an email provider like Microsoft Teams or Google, you cannot survive, right? So I think knowing why you are building what you are building, I think gives you confidence, so you will not get too much worried about the noise. I think what we need to learn from this AI is not only the way to build products is changing, how to build is getting commoditized, right? But what to build is becoming increasingly harder. Then once you build, what to build requires you to know why you want to build what you want to build. That basically requires a lot deeper understanding of problem space, your customer. As we were discussing, being very close to customers is super important if you're building for enterprise, right? If you look at enterprise software companies, how many of them have gotten to 10 billion plus? There are like 4 or 5. That's it. How many of them have even ever gotten to $1 billion plus? There are less than 60. How many of them, as Khadim was saying earlier, even to 100 million plus? There are less than, I think, if I'm not wrong, 4,000 companies ever got in the history of enterprise software in the last 40 years or 50 years to 100 million plus, right? Yeah, I think, founders should have some conviction, right? And continue to validate that conviction with customers, with competition, with the current changes that are happening in the macro, micro industry, vertical, and whatnot. But don't worry is my thing, right? Because if you're worried, the worst thing you can do is, I think leaders respond, they don't react. If you get hooked into this meme games and Twitter games and LinkedIn games, you'll always have, right? Just like, in your neighborhood, there will be somebody richer than you. There will be one company which will do extremely well. Your thing is, how do I build something that's really valuable for my customers? In that process, how do I create value for my team, my investors, and everybody involved? Right? And I think those things will not change. What will change is, previously, if we had to go attack the problem that we were attacking, we would probably need 100 plus engineers at least. Now we are doing that with 25, 30 engineers, right? So the build has gotten easier. But what to build and why you want to build what you want to build has only gotten harder, right? So as long as you're clear about those things, I think you'll have a comfort,
I think whenever there's a fundamental shift, whether it's on-premise to cloud or when mobile or today this one AI, right? It just creates the tailwind, and because everybody wants to know what's happening in this shift, and I don't want to be left behind, right? So people want to experiment, they want to allocate budgets to that. And for the startups, actually, it creates an opportunity now to actually acquire or land those customers, which otherwise would have been hard, right? And new category is also one such opportunity where you can actually go get those logos. But the fundamental still remains the same as he was mentioning. You still need to prove value. It's an opportunity to grab those logos or grab those customers, get into it, get those dollars. But then you still have to build those other fundamentals where you will actually show them the value with success, with other stuff and all. And then be sticky and identify the problems and create that larger solutions and all. So because of this shift, many companies get 100, 200, 300, 400 million, depending on that size and all. But the companies which capitalize on that, they become legacy, right? That become tens billions. So because they start solving a lot of other problems and they actually really go deep. In fact, for just putting a plug here for Whatfix, in last 6 months, we have seen several of our customers coming back. We have bought some AI solutions. We are facing adoption issue.
Can you drive adoption? Probably all the biggest AI solutions from the biggest vendors in the world are facing adoption.
So if you open up Whatfix page in the solution, there is a AI adoption, like we used to have software adoptions and all, where we help them in improving AI adoption actually. So yeah, it's helping us.
That's good. The more software gets created, the more bigger Whatfix will become.
So we will do agent adoptions.
Yeah.
And you previously wrote playbooks for Indian founders that how to do 500K setting from India, how to do million setting from India. What are the new playbooks that are getting created in the AI world for GTM? Right.
Not yet AI first company, right? But see, I think I think most important is there is a FOMO, right? Nobody wants to be left behind.
A lot of FOMO.
Right? Of course, a lot of FOMO everywhere, right? Everybody wants to be. So there are a lot of companies just putting AI for the sake of it. There are some genuine companies actually, right? So because everybody is open to listen what solutions you have in this AI, I think at least knocking the doors and reaching to those customers, I think it's possible. It doesn't matter where you are today. So I think the fundamental playbook remains the same. Like if I was talking yesterday to one of the another investors who was saying actually for deep tech companies or sectorial companies like in energy or defense, I think people are not listening. People are actually saying, okay, you can't build this, you can't build that. Similarly, somebody has told about the AI first and many other stuff. Well, the jargons have changed. Like if I replicate some of those things, the same. Like, okay, enterprise SaaS, you can't do it from India. You can't sell 100K or 500K or $1 million from India. I think if you still think fundamentally, who is your buyer persona and what problem you're going to solve for that person and how your product is going to solve, I think other things are similar. One thing which Vijay mentioned very clearly is like probably many of those steps in GTM, how you're reaching out to them, how you're doing the research for those persona, how you are articulating those values, how you are going to actually respond to those emails. Many of those things can be automated. And you can actually, if manually, if you're able to reach 100, now you can reach 1,000, right? So GTM playbook will become more scalable, probably. But the fundamental will not change so much. And you can evolve or you can grow even much faster than what you used to do before. And one thing which is very important here is at some point everybody will do it. So the first mover advantage is always there. If you can adapt to that, you can move faster and you can take advantage of those. Probably you would have distribution mode build on top of it.
And you both are selling to the CIOs, right? What is the top of mind worry for the CIOs?
See, I'll tell you from the AI perspective, at least, maybe general worry, I think CIO has many things, right? I think one of the problems CIO would definitely have, which every boardroom discussion is, okay, what are you going to do in AI? Right? So they also want to say, okay, how my software stack, how my things, AI can help in my all processes and all. One shift which I feel, which everybody I think has aligned is AI. Like earlier we had all workflows. Now everybody believes that AI will help outcomes. So CIO probably, at least in non-tech industries, can actually now start influencing a lot more outcomes, rather than just building the processes and workflows for them, right? That's one. 18 to 24 months back, when I used to speak to a lot of CIOs, one thing which came out, which very common was, of course, there'll be a few exceptions here and there, was, okay, I want to know what you guys are doing in AI.
Yeah.
Okay. But do not roll out. If you roll out, I'm switching off your software today. Because they believed, I want to know, but I'm not prepared. Because my IT team and IS teams are evolving how to evaluate even their data privacy and data going out or learning and all, because nobody knew like how it's going to happen. So they wanted to be on top of innovation, but they were not ready to deploy. Last 8 to 10 months, I have seen many companies, information security and IT departments, they evolved to evaluate. Fast forward, last 3 to 6 months, I have seen many companies have built AI task force, saying what are the low-hanging fruits, what are the use case we can actually deploy AI. So the enterprise have moved from just listening what you have to now identifying what are the use cases where I can automate or where I can deploy AI. So that transition I've seen in like 24 months.
And
Yeah, I think even
And when I talk, I'm talking about large enterprises.
yeah. So we basically operate in a global 10,000 segment, right? Khadim is mostly in global 2,000, segment. As I said, I think CIOs earlier mostly used to deal with process. The process mostly created bureaucracy. Now they are more interested in delivering productivity so that they can show outcomes. Right? Security is top of the mind. In 2023 they were probably thinking about AI. In 2024 they were trying some AI. Now 2025 they want to deploy and prove, right? The potential of it, right? Not just the promise and the potential of it, right? Show the value of it. But CIOs have the same problems, right? How do I support growth? How do I make the org move faster?
Digital transformation.
And how do I make IT smarter, right? So we literally, listened to a lot of those words and came up with our own tagline: smarter IT, faster business, right? Which is you're continuously, right? You're transformed for cloud, you transformed for web, you transform for mobile, you transform for big data, now you're transforming for AI. But fundamentally, everybody, all of us agree that we could only do task level, workflow level automation. Automation existed for so long in software. Now you can actually take that task and process level automation to a job role or a job function level automation. I think that's a big opportunity for everybody, existing vendor, new vendor, upstart, to scale up, is how can you basically drive more automation at a job role and a job function level. If you can do that, I think then we can truly move organizations faster and help more companies become big companies, right? One of my fundamental belief with AI is why there are only 10,000 companies in the world whom we call as G10K, who can spend tens to multiple tens of millions of dollars on software. Why we don't have 100,000 companies spending that much money? Because we did not had an opportunity to create very big companies, because capacity and capabilities are very hard. Right? Of course, capital is the hardest. Once you have capital, what do you do as a founder? You organize capacity, you organize some capability, whether service capability, product capability, manufacturing capability, service capability, whatever it is, right? I think AI will, unlock a lot of capacity and capabilities. So more smaller companies which got stuck at 50, 100, few hundred people, today can actually grow, become few hundred to few thousand people. I think they will create a lot of jobs, while big companies might become leaner and smaller, because a lot of bureaucracy, the human bureaucracy, right? I generally tell AI will not take away jobs, but AI will take away bureaucracy. Anywhere there is a process, you're waiting for a human update, status update, middleman, I think AI will, reduce those layers. But it will also create a lot of growth opportunities. I feel we will have a lot more businesses. So the opportunity will only get bigger.
In 2 decades, everybody has transformed. Everybody has data, right? So I think the next big change, I think what I'm saying is now, can I push productivity, right? Of course, decisions I will take, but at micro level, as he was mentioning, a job function, a job role, how can I push 30%? How I can push 50%? So I think that major change is happening. And with AI is accelerated.
Well, thank you so much, Khadim. Thank you, Vijay. This has been an amazing conversation.
I learned so much. So thank you, Khadim.
A pleasure here. Always learning from everyone, actually. And thanks for inviting.
Thank you for having us.